I absolutely loved Act 3 / the post-game of Dragon Quest XI and was surprised to learn that so many people hated it. In many RPGs, the post-game can easily turn into a truly depressing, empty experience, one that'll give you an existential crisis in no time flat. The days of exploring new locations, fighting exciting enemies and bosses, and advancing the gripping plot are behind you. All that remains is hours of grinding and leveling up until you're strong enough to defeat optional bosses, just to feel like you've truly finished the game and can move on. It's like desperately trying to suck up the last tiny drips from the bottom of a glass while longing for the days when you had a full pint in front of you. Love that analogy, I use it all the time. Dragon Quest XI avoids that entirely. Its post-game has its own story, and what would usually be an optional boss becomes the true final boss of the main story. Meanwhile, the game provides more than enough extra dungeons, enemies and side missions to prepare you properly for this final threat. It feels generous without being tedious. One of the things I love most about RPGs is that the more time you invest, the more you get out of them. Games might start off easy or feel limited in options, but the longer you play, the deeper they get, and the harder I get hooked. The post-game of Dragon Quest XI exemplifies this perfectly. I was literally playing all day for about a week. I actively try not to do that no matter how much I love a game, but I just couldn't get enough of it. Some people claim that Act 3 ruins the story and undoes the character development the main cast went through, but I've never been able to see it that way. The characters seem to carry faint memories of the other timeline, and even if they didn't, I can't bring myself to believe that growth earned through loss is something that needs to be preserved at all costs. If you were given the chance, wouldn't you choose to save your sibling rather than accept their death, just to keep a better character arc? Choosing to fight for a happier ending to prevent untold suffering upon the world from ever happening is exactly what makes Act 3 meaningful to me. I love Rhyperior and its design. A lot of people consider it ugly and over-designed. I couldn't disagree more. I was genuinely blown away that Rhydon, a Pokemon I already thought looked complete and badass on its own, could evolve into an even higher stage. If even a monster as imposing as Rhydon could get a new evolution, then suddenly anything felt possible. The sheer range of ideas that opened up in my mind was incredibly exciting. And just look at those physical stats. They're nearly on Groudon's level. Just don't dwell on the special stats too much. As for the design everyone seems to hate, I think it makes Rhyperior look more advanced and insanely powerful, which is only reinforced by a Pokédex entry stating that it fires Geodude, as if to say that the rock and ground type Pokemon you once relied on is now nothing more than ammunition for this beast. Look at those gnarly elbows. I wouldn't want to get nudged by them. And listen to the cry. Literally screaming with power, warning you to stay far away, unless you've got a water pistol. So yeah, Rhyperior is amazing in my book, and I ain't changing that opinion for anyone. I'm not 100% sure how unpopular this one actually is, given how beloved the third Sonic movie is, from what I've seen anyway, but Sonic Adventure 2 is probably my favourite 3D Sonic game. I'll always have a soft spot for the first adventure, thanks to its atmosphere, bizarre cutscenes and endearing glitches. If I judged games purely on personality, Sonic Adventure would easily take the crown. But Adventure 2 beats it where it matters most, gameplay. Well, eventually. Like everyone else, I initially hated everything that wasn't a Sonic or Shadow stage. I wish the game focused exclusively on them and ditched the rest. That changed once I finished the main story and gained the freedom to play any stage at my leisure. Over time, I grew to enjoy the Tails/Eggman and Knuckles/Rouge stages just as much as the Sonic and Shadow stages, sometimes even more so. With 5 missions for every stage and A ranks to earn across the board, the replay value was absolutely incredible. I don't believe a ranking system should be required to bring out the best in the game, but I genuinely can't think of another title that's enhanced by it more than Sonic Adventure 2. Sure, 3D Green Hill Zone was a pretty naff reward, but it's not the destination that counts, it's the journey. And I'll never forget the fun, sometimes frustrating, rollercoaster ride of earning all 180 emblems. Danganronpa S Ultimate Summer Camp is great in my opinion. When I bought Decadence, it was purely to play the 3 main games and I expected Summer Camp to be a fun little bonus I'd quickly forget about. Instead, I ended up getting hours and hours of enjoyment out of it. I know it looks like nothing more than a gacha game designed to siphon as much money from your wallet as possible, but I unlocked every character and completed everything without spending a single extra penny. Its setup and gameplay loop are unlike anything I've played before. Who would have thought a Mario Party style board game could double as a training ground for Danganronpa characters in an RPG? The way you gradually unlock easier methods for defeating the mechanical animals blocking off the island, letting you access stronger areas earlier, actually reminded me of how new items open up checkpoints in Majora's Mask. I may have my issues with that game, but that kind of progression has always given me a thrill. Seeing characters from the 3 main games, and Ultra Despair Girls I suppose, interacting with each other was a huge bonus as well. Maybe I went in with lowered expectations and enjoyed it more as a result. Maybe I was just happy to spend more time with these characters after so many of them met such brutal ends elsewhere. Either way, pretending I loathed my time at summer camp just to keep up appearances with its haters would be a flat out lie. Pikmin 1 is my favourite game in the series. I firmly believe that a time limit is a necessary component of the full Pikmin experience, so it's no surprise that I consider Pikmin 1 and 3 to be the best entries. That said, I give the original the edge thanks to its darker atmosphere, desperate story, and the fact that it was my introduction to this strange new universe. Both Pikmin 1 and 3 are on the short side, but are much more forgiving of the first game in that regard. Pikmin 3 was in development for so long and still felt even shorter. I didn't even realise I was fighting the final boss until I beat it and the ending started. I genuinely assumed there was a lot more game left. I don't dislike Pikmin 2. Even though it lacks a time limit and suffers from the opposite problem by dragging on for too long, I think it was a necessary follow-up. After the first game's short length left many players, including me, wanting more, 2 was a welcome way to scratch that itch. I didn't think Star Fox Zero was bad at all, not even close to the crime against humanity some people treat it as. I'll admit the controls were a pain in the arse at first, and I wouldn't blame anyone in the slightest if they were a deal breaker, but at its core, this is still a solid Star Fox game. Once I got to grips with the bizarre control scheme, I actually came to appreciate what it added to the experience, though I still think having no option to use traditional controls is an unforgivable sin. There are some cool missions and set pieces here, with the one-on-one showdown between Fox and Wolf being a personal highlight. But I have to say, I absolutely hated how Andros can apparently see James McCloud during the final battle. It completely undermines the ambiguity of his appearance in Star Fox 64. Was he a ghost? A hallucination? A manifestation of Fox's memories? That uncertainty made the moment between Fox and his father incredibly emotional. Zero ruins it by having Andros there as well, yelling over everything. Wait, what am I doing? I was supposed to be arguing Zero's favour, not make it sound worse. Still, even with the forced unorthodox control scheme and the botched recreation of the best moment for Star Fox 64, I'd say Zero is one of the better Star Fox games overall. That said, I probably should finally play Assault one of these days and see where it lands for me. I always seem to forget it exists for some reason. I think Mario & Luigi Paper Jam isn't nearly as bad as a lot of people claim it is. If you focus on its strengths rather than its admittedly bland presentation, the tedious toad gathering sections, which make up like 5% of the game at most, and the wasted crossover potential of only including the shitty version of Paper Mario that no one likes, it's actually a perfectly fine experience, one I'd argue deserves more respect. The Mario & Luigi series also went in the opposite direction from most video game franchises. Instead of getting gradually easier with each installment until it became brain dead and boring, it actually got harder, with Paper Jam featuring possibly the most difficult but still fair gameplay in the series. Dream Team frustrated the hell out of me because it had both the highest highs and the lowest lows of the series. On one hand, it offered creative and challenging boss battles, on the other, it featured some of the most soul-crushingly awful tutorials in any game, and no, I haven't forgotten Skyward Sword. Paper Jam, for all intents and purposes, feels like a superior version of Dream Team. It retains the difficulty, and maybe even harder, and has its own strong set of bosses, avoids bogging the player down with endless tutorials, and even gives you the option to speed them up or skip them entirely. But I still think Bowser's Inside Story is the best game in the series, striking the perfect balance between personality and gameplay. That's hardly an unpopular opinion though, so there's no need to dwell on it further. My estimation of Paper Jam has only risen higher since playing Brothership. What a major disappointment that pile of shit was, don't even get me started! Oh, and I also much prefer the remake of Superstar Saga over the original due to the increased difficulty. Is that unpopular? I think it is, not sure. Super Smash Bros. 4 on the Wii U is graphically superior to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This opinion might be influenced by the fact that I've played Ultimate to death since its release and eventually grown sick of everything about it, right down to the visuals themselves. Even so, setting that bias aside, Smash 4 on Wii U simply looks better to me. Everything looks more detailed, lively and colourful. And maybe this is just me going mad, but the character models even have a slight plasticine charm to them, half tricking my brain into thinking I'm watching Wallace and Gromit. Smash Ultimate on the other hand, while thankfully nowhere near the pits of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, aka the most visually disgusting games of all time, suffers from a similar problem. Its graphics have a cheap, washed out, dirty look to them. If I stare at them too closely, I start to feel sick, the same way I do if I eat soggy, smelly vegetables or watch an episode of Top Cat. More importantly, the characters sometimes blend into the background too well for my liking, an issue I don't remember ever having with Smash 4. As a result, Ultimate's visuals are not only less appealing to look at, but also less functional than those of its predecessor. I firmly agree with myself, obviously, but every time I share this opinion with others, they seem shocked that I could possibly prefer Smash 4's visuals, while I can't understand how anyone looks at Ultimate and thinks it's an upgrade. Beauty really is in the eye of the beholder. Unless you think Pokemon Scarlet and Violet look good, in that case, you're either blind or daft. I think the original Final Fantasy VII is underrated. Yes, not overrated, underrated. You heard me. I get why the game isn't viewed favourably in some circles. We can try to be mature about it, but the fact is that when something has endless praise heaped upon it while its contemporaries are ignored, it's easy to resent the object of everyone else's affection. But I don't allow the opinions of others to dictate my own. It was my first Final Fantasy, wow that's confusing to say, and at the time, it had easily the most involved and ambitious plot of any game I'd played. The emotional impact it left on me was enormous, and it certainly doesn't falter on the gameplay front either. The materia system in particular is one of the most brilliant mechanics in any RPG, deep and complex, yet easy to understand, flexible and endlessly fun. If you hate the game and honestly think it's overrated, there's nothing wrong with that, but in my view it receives a lot of unwarranted hostility simply because of how popular it is. It might not be my favourite, that will likely always be Final Fantasy VI, but I'm perfectly happy with it being the face of the series, the Pikachu of Final Fantasy if you will. You know what actually frustrates me the most about Final Fantasy VII's popularity? Despite spawning so many extra games, not a single one of them plays like the original that started it all. Come on Square, Enix, or whatever you go by these days, just give me more of that sweet turn-based materia action I fell in love with all those years ago. I'm not particularly fussy when it comes to video game stories. Many people never seem to be satisfied with them, often calling them undercooked compared to the plots found in other mediums, but I always try to keep in mind that video games have another priority: gameplay. Because gameplay almost always comes first, video game plots have to be built around it. That naturally makes them different from stories in books, films or TV. This makes it easier for me to forgive their simplicity, and in many cases the gameplay itself can enhance or even carry the story. When you really boil it down, most video game plots are excuses to fight increasingly powerful opponents. All I need is for the gameplay to make those opponents feel as dangerous as the story claims they are to make me feel proud for overcoming them. If it succeeds at that, I'm satisfied. The Pokemon League in Pokemon Sword and Shield is a near-miss example that illustrates what I mean. Before the Galar League challenge begins, 1,000 trainers enter the competition. By the time you reach the final stages, only you and your main rivals remain, with everyone else having dropped out because they couldn't keep up. It's a cool way to hype up the gym leaders and the challenge as a whole, but because the game is so goddamn easy, it doesn't ring true. If every gym leader were a genuine ordeal and you really had to earn each victory, then instead of thinking, wow, those other trainers must have sucked hard if they couldn't get all 8 badges, you'd think, geez, no wonder so many trainers didn't make it to the end. At that point, the plot and gameplay would be working hand in hand. For an opposite example, Fire Emblem Fates Conquest has a plot whose many faults have been widely ridiculed. However, its relentless and downright brutal difficulty barely gives you a moment to breathe. Chapter by chapter, I found myself becoming more emotionally drained. The game gives off a hateful, oppressive vibe purely for its gameplay, and it wears you down over time. By the time I got to the infamous chapter 25, the gameplay had drained almost every ounce of emotional strength I had. So when Ryoma became incredibly angry and hostile towards Corin, imagining myself in Corin's position and seeing my older brother act this coldly towards me hit me harder than I expected, even if their relationship hadn't been well fleshed out. Then, during the battle itself, despite being angrier than he's ever been in his life, Ryoma calmly waits 20 turns before even attacking Corin, effectively creating a time limit in an already evil chapter. It's immensely intimidating, and my mood wasn't helped in the slightest by the depressing Fallen You playing in the background or the presence of those inevitable end ninjas. Ugh. A story doesn't even need to put in much effort to make gameplay more emotionally charged for me, which brings me to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and its bosses. Each of the champions was killed by a Blight Ganon, instantly giving you a reason to want them dead, both for revenge and because the thought of Link suffering the same fate at their hands is too horrible to bear. Although it would probably be even more impactful if the Blight Ganons weren't near clones of one another with no real personality to boo and hiss at. The ideal setup will be to combine a story-worthy antagonist with a challenging boss fight. So in conclusion, it's not that I'm against deeper storytelling in video games, but it doesn't take much to get me invested in a game's plot. I'm perfectly happy letting the gameplay carry the rest.